standing here, couldn't we just pass the one around?
Testing, testing. I am not a singer. Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Cleo Mad from the beautiful island of Palau. Woohoo! Yes. My pronouns are she and her, and I am currently a sophomore studying sociology, and I also serve as this year's co-coordinator for the Student Council of Cultural Affairs. This is my first CEAD conference. Woo! I am so grateful that you've chosen to spend your morning with us, to learn, to connect, and to be part of something bigger than ourselves.
And good morning, everyone. I'm not going to be as energetic. I'm tired, but I'm happy to be here. My name's Don. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm currently a senior studying public administration. I'll be graduating at the end of this term, but I'm hoping to get into EOU's clinical counseling program, have my interview this coming Wednesday, so fingers crossed there. And I'm also one of the co-coordinators for the SECA this year, and I'm a member of ASCOU, serving as the current Director of Student Outreach. And I'm just very happy to be here and help create a space where everyone can learn and grow together, and thank you all for coming out today.
Good morning, everyone. My, my name is Mary Whitney Ball. My pronouns are she and her. I'm a sophomore majoring in accounting and with a concentration on managerial accounting and a minor in Spanish. I'm a pimentor in Summer Bridge and also one of this year co-coordinator of council affair of cultural affair. Student council of cultural affair. Thank you thank you all of you for coming here, and let's get started.
Okay. 2026 marks the 15th year of the CEAD Conference. Over the years, the CEAD Conference has explored a range of topics, including the value of different perspectives, how systems shape experiences, and more recently, building relationships, communicating effectively, and strengthening our sense of community. This year's conference will continue to focus on community, connection, constructive dialogue, and navigating conversations around identity and lived experiences, particularly with rural settings. This event is designed to bring together students, faculty, staff, and community members for thoughtful discussions and reflection.
Thank you. This conference continues to center community belonging and navigating conversations around identity and equity, especially within rural contexts like here. Our keynote speaker, Elliot Feenstra, pronouns he, they, is from Oregon's Kitchen Table, and he brings extensive experience facilitating thoughtful, grounded conversations across differences. Drawing from both lived experience and professional work, Elliot will share with us stories of building meaningful connections and invite students to reflect on how they can show up for one another in authentic and supportive ways.
This year team will help us feel like we belong, invite us to reflect on what belonging means, and use storyline as a way to foster meaningful relationship and build community. EOU remain committed to fostering a campus environment where all students, faculty, and staff feel a meaningful sense of connection and support. The annual SEAL conference is one of the ways the university continues to invest in opportunities open for open dialogue, reflection, and shape responsibility, and building a strong connected campus community.
This year's CEAD conference also offers a unique opportunity to participate in a facilitated statewide conversation about belonging in higher education. Through storytelling and shared experiences, Oregon's Kitchen Table and the Higher Education Coordinating Commission, also known as HEC, hope to gather the voices of college students from across Oregon to better understand what it means to belong in our campuses and communities. For students in rural Eastern Oregon, this conversation is especially important. Too often, assumptions and biases shape how people view rural communities and the students who live here. This is your choice, this is your chance to share your experiences, community perspectives, and stories in a space where they can help inform conversations and decisions about the future of higher education across the state. Your voice matters, and this is an opportunity to ensure that rural students' experiences are heard, valued, and represented.
And now I'll do a quick run through of today's schedule. After going over a few housekeeping items here, we're going to open the conference by grounding our time together and reviewing our community agreements, our land acknowledgement, followed by our keynote address by Elliot Feenstra. We'll take a quick break after Elliot's session, and then in the second half of the morning, we will work together to brainstorm strategies that individuals, institutions, and statewide systems can use to foster a stronger culture of belonging for students across Oregon. And then after our two sessions, we invite you all to join us for lunch and conversation as we close out the conference.
Please make sure that your phone are either turned off or muted, as do not disturb yourself or others. Morning refreshment will remain available until our morning break is over. Please help yourself at any time. Restrooms are located to your left as well as the water fountain. Please feel free to step out and stretch. Use the restroom, get some refreshment whenever you need. Your comfort and well-being are important, and we want this place. We want this space where you can. We want this to be a space where you can feel at ease and full present. Listen to your body, hydrate, move around, and take a break as needed. We're glad you're here.
A quick note, photography is happening throughout the morning today. If you're not comfortable with having your photo taken, that's okay. Please make sure you place a red dot sticker on your name tag. The red dot will indicate to our photographer to not take photo of you. Red dot stickers are available at the registration desk. Finally, a portion of today's sessions will be live streamed and available for viewers on EOU's Mountie Network YouTube channel for those who are joining us online. Please know that we want to make sure that your voices, experiences, and perspectives matter too. As part of EOU's continued commitment to fostering a meaningful sense of belonging and community for all students, we invite you to register for an upcoming virtual conversation hosted by Oregon's Kitchen Table, centered on belonging and community within our online student experience. We hope you'll join us in sharing your thoughts, connecting with others, and helping shape a more inclusive and supportive online community at EOU. Please be watching your email for dates and times. At this time, we would like to share our community agreements. A community agreement is a shared agreement about how we want to share the space we are in as we learn and grow together. It helps us identify concrete ways to create an inclusive community and to talk through difficult conversations while minimizing conflict. Using these practices, we can intentionally challenge ourselves and each other while still recognizing the different experiences we're all coming from. These community agreements are also available at your table. We encourage you to use them as guiding principles as you go and engage in conversations throughout the conference.
Our first agreement is to stay engaged and be fully present. Discomfort and confusion are normal and courageous conversations and are an expected part of the process. Notice when you're shutting down and challenge yourself to stay open and listen fully, especially when emotions arise. Allyship means being active and learning and shifting power.
Second, keep an open mind and listen with intent. Listen to understand, not to judge. As you listen to people share their knowledge and experience, it's important to keep an open mind as you actively listen with intent, rather than listening so immediately for what right or wrong. Entertain that a truth can involve multiple perspectives and we recognize that multiple things are true about any given subject. Growth happens when we stay curious, reflect with compassion, and embrace discomfort. As you move to your own self reflection today, please remember to be kind and have a compassion for yourself. Stepping out to your comfort zone can be scary and disoriented sometimes, but you're bound to make mistakes, and that's okay. Be sure to take a moment when you need it and get some fresh air, get some water, or step away and take some time take some time to yourself before coming back to the conversation.
Third, lean into your discomfort. One way to think about this is learn to become comfortable with the discomfort. As we intentionally lean into difficult and uncomfortable conversations, we acknowledge that our individual and collective learning is going to be difficult, even a bit messy, and that will happen over time. Sometimes our values and the way we understand things will be challenged. We acknowledge that the process of unlearning ideas and beliefs can be uncomfortable. Remember, we're here to learn and grow, both as individuals and collectively. We won't fix it all in one conference, but we will get closer if we're all willing to lead into discomfort.
Then fourth, expect and accept non-closure. Engaging in conversations on diversity, equity, and inclusion means that there will be times of no closure. That is because this is an ongoing work that does not necessarily leave you walking away feeling like everything turned out the way you had hoped. Be willing to take risks and accept that much of this is about changing yourself, not others. Therefore, we must commit to an ongoing dialogue and a journey of growth together.
Fifth, shall listen, not detailed. This community agreement is about confidentiality. We aim to create a brave space where everyone can express a story and equality and value and respect it. Please remember that conversation today are confidential. We might use examples of our own experiences during this time together. If someone experiences move you and you were to want to share with others, please 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 share what you learn about, not the details. While it's okay to reference and talk about these experiences outside of the space, it's not okay to use names or share anyone's personal information without their explicit consent.
And finally, assume best intentions. Everyone comes in with a different set of experiences and knowledge. Seek first to understand and acknowledge everyone is learning. Give grace, seek to understand, and own the impact of your words, even if your intentions were good. We are all here to learn and grow as individuals, and we are using the best terminology that we know and understand. It is still important to take responsibility for the impact we have when our best intentions have a negative impact.
All right. We acknowledge the institutional and systemic barriers that have historically silenced marginalized communities. This recognition is more than symbolic. It calls us to reflect on the structures we are part of today and to move from acknowledgement to action, learning, and relationship building. We're committed to co-creating and co-owning solutions with BIPOC and other underrepresented communities, especially those impacted by structural inequities in education through intentional and evolving practices. Our land acknowledgement here is a transformative act that honors Indigenous peoples, their enduring relationship to the land, and the history is often erased by colonialism. It invites us to reflect on what it means to occupy Indigenous lands and to express gratitude and respect for the original stewards of these places. Importantly, colonialism is not a thing of the past, it is ongoing. We must remain mindful of our roles in that history and engage meaningfully with the present moment.
We are hosted today by Eastern Oregon University, which rests on indigenous land of the Nez Minipo, Kaisius, Rumalatila, and Walla Walla, all of whom made their home to North northeast throughout Northeast Oregon region. We celebrate their traditions, language, and stories. We acknowledge their continuous connection to this land, water, and community, and pay our respect to these original steward of the Northeast Oregon. We invite you to pause and honor the tradition, indigenous people of the land on which we live and gather. May is Asian American Native Hawaiian and Pacific Island and heritage. It is a time to honor history, culture, and contribution of community and nation across Asia and Pacific Island who have shaped and enriched United States for generations. This month celebrate the strength, creativity, and leadership of Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and specific Pacific Islanders community, while also recognizing and the ongoing challenge many communities still face, including discrimination, invisibility, and environmental change that affects some community more than others. At its heart, this month is about honoring the full humanity in these communities, their story, art, activism, knowledge, and spirit. As we move to the day's program, we invite you to carry with you the richness of this heritage and to reflect on how you can unfit and celebrate Asian American, Native, Hawaiian, and Pacific and Islanders voices, not just during the May, but throughout the year.
As part of Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, Eastern Oregon University is proud to present the 36th annual Island Magic Luau and Show on Saturday, May 23rd, 2026, hosted by the Navigators Club. Woohoo! Yes! I heard there's going to be really great food, so be there. Be there. Following a joyful return last year, this beloved tradition once again celebrates Pacific Islander heritage, community, and connection through food, music, and dance. This year's theme is Cultural Renaissance, navigating ourselves and our identity is our anchor. Tickets for Island Magic are available on campus at the EOU bookstore and the Mosaic Center on the second floor of Hogue, as well as selected off-campus locations, including Raul's Tequila. I don't know if I pronounced that right. In downtown La Grande. For details, please visit the Mosaic Center on the second floor of Hogue.
And now, we're truly honored to welcome our keynote speaker, Elliot Feenstra. This morning, Elliot is a community organizer, artist, gardener, and facilitator. He currently works with Oregon's Kitchen Table, a statewide community engagement program that creates ways for Oregonians to participate in public decision-making. Prior to joining Oregon's Kitchen Table, he had also worked as an arts educator, queer community organizer, peer support, and farmhand. In 2011, he moved to Josephine County, where he worked with a small team to create original plays and dance theater pieces about community issues with international groups, from kindergartners to people in their 70s. He uses theater and art as well as dialogue to bring people together and has led conversations and trainings across the state with Oregon Humanities since 2015. He also served on the community advisory team for the Pride in Numbers statewide LGBTQ+ research project and currently sits on the board of the Rural Organizing Project. He holds a master's in performance studies from York University and a bachelor's from the University of Chicago, as well as training in community storytelling, social practices, and applied theater. After living in Josephine County for many years, he now lives in Portland with his wife, and they're expecting a baby in July. So with that, please join me in welcoming Elliot up to the stage. Thank you, Elliot.
Is it working? Okay. Wow, thank you all so much. I'm so happy to be here. I feel like so honored, and thank you for spending your Saturday morning here. Yeah. Okay. So, my name is Elliot, as you know, and I guess I just want to say we're going to be mostly jumping into conversation today. So, when Mika reached out, I was like, a keynote for an hour. I was like, my thing is more to get people talking with each other. So this is mostly going to be participatory, both sharing stories and doing some strategizing. And I would never want to ask you to do something that I'm not also willing to do. And so I wanted to start off by sharing some stories and kind of some thoughts. So, and I'll warn you, I'm not going to answer the question. I'm not here to like tell you here's the things, you know, so that's just the question that's in the room. So I want to start with a story from my life just to kind of bring us into the space of talking about belonging. I've always been, I kind of thought of myself as a weird kid and somebody who didn't really fit, like a little bit different than my siblings and a little bit different than the people I went to school with, and I really kind of took that on as my identity, being somebody who didn't quite belong. And when I was younger, I mean, still true now, but I read a lot, and so I really, like, through books was where I found stories and a sense of like belonging in the world, and just learned about, you know, so many different things. And I was really antsy to get out of my hometown, which was Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I was like so focused on getting to a big city to find people like me, like whatever that meant. And so I went to a university that had a reputation of kind of like people who don't fit in other places and weirdos who don't belong. And by the book, I should have fit in, and the story that I was not like the people around me and that I didn't fit in kind of stuck with me, so I still had that sense. And after university, I had a hard time imagining, like, where do I fit in the world, and I decided to move to Oregon and become a farmer. And so when I was 24, I found myself living in Cave Junction in southern Josephine County in southern Oregon. Anybody been to Cave Junction? Maddie's been to Cave Junction. Cave Junction is a town of about 1,200 people, so a little smaller than LeGrand. It's right on the California border. You can see the mountains from all the parking lots. And it's known for being like a little bit rough and a little bit of a Wild West town. And yeah, so I had been living nearby, and I was taking dance classes with somebody who lived there, and she wanted to start this program in the public schools making plays about community issues, and she invited me to be part of it. And so, like, maybe that seems like a little bit of a place that I wouldn't exactly fit in. And in fact, it's like where I found a sense of home and where my kind of story about belonging changed. So when I moved there, I kind of from the beginning felt like not just that I don't fit in, but that I was like in danger. And every time I parked in the grocery store parking lot, I was like sure that my tires were gonna get popped. And you know, that's because I had a story about who belongs there. And I had my own kind of bias and assumption about that town. And I'm a queer, transgender person. And you know, by that I mean I was assigned female at birth, and now I identify as like a little bit gender in between, but I live as a transmasculine person. I use he pronouns. I wear pants. You know, I've over the years just found the place that I feel like more home in my body and in the world. And I had a story that Cave Junction was not a friendly place for LGBTQ people or people like me. So I was also working in the public schools, and whenever I went into the public schools, I was also like kind of like a little bit terrified. And that came from both my story about who belongs there, and it came from experiences that I had about people would say to me like, whoa, Cave Junction, be careful. And my first day on the job at Lorna Byrne Middle School, the principal called me in to the office, which of course is totally triggering, you know, and I walked in and the HR person was also sitting there, and the two of them were like, okay, what's your agenda and what are you doing here? And I was like, I'm here to teach theater. And they were like, okay, but you know, what are people gonna call you? Like Mr. Elliott? And I was like, I guess so, yeah, you know. And the principal said like, oh, you know, or through this conversation, he said like, well, okay, but it would be totally inappropriate for you to tell kids that you're transgender because that would be like me talking about my sexuality. And it put me in this very awkward position because like I'm a person who looks kind of gender in between, and of course elementary schoolers are just like, are you a boy or a girl? And it turns out that it's actually, that was illegal. Like I couldn't figure that out at the time, but it's actually totally legal to like be a teacher, say I'm transgender or I'm gay. Like that's not something shameful, but it put me in this confusing position and contributed to my story that like, okay, my tires are gonna get popped in the Shop Smart parking lot. And so a couple months into this job, I was wrapping up teaching an elementary school after school class, and I was helping a little girl tie her shoes at the end of the day, and I heard somebody yelling outside the mobile classroom. And I went out and there was this parent, and he like turned on me with all of this rage and what was I doing in there with his daughter, and it was totally inappropriate for me to be teaching kids. And I was like totally overwhelmed and terrified. I'm not that good at handling anger in the moment. I just totally shut down. And he was saying he's gonna go to the principal, he's gonna get me fired, and he was also gonna have people like have his mother come and talk with me, and I was like, okay, this is what I was waiting for. Great, I'm out of here. This is not my place. Like, I'm gonna get fired. And oh, I must have done something wrong. Like, you know, and so I just kind of like stood there and shook and was like, okay, I have to get out of here. And he left. And then I went home and I like lay in bed. And I was like, okay, this is my last night in this town. This is my tenure in Cave Junction. And the next day I went back to the elementary school, and I was just like full of this fear and dread. And I went onto the basketball court where his mother, or kind of his mother figure, had come to talk with me, and she was this older woman with a handkerchief on her hair, and she looked a little like kind of butch, like kind of masculine. And I go up and I introduce myself, and she looked me up and down, and she just asked me like, what's going on here? And I start explaining, like I started just telling her my whole life story, like here's how I got here and here's who I am, and like my whole heart was like in this job, doing this work, you know, trying to figure out where I fit in the world. And as I'm talking, I like, and as she was responding, I realized like, I think she's gay. Like I think she actually sees what's happening here. And she's also this kind of gender in-between person. I don't know how she talked about that or what words she used, you know, but I just was like, oh, I think actually like she gets it. And she's like me. And all of my like fear and my panic and my story that like I'm the only one kind of dissolved. It's like, oh, I'm not alone here. And she and I untangled things like how did this come about? And it turns out that her son, he's Native American, and he was trying to raise his family in this traditional way. And he was living in all of this fear because they felt like, oh, we don't quite fit in this town, and we have to like watch out because people might be trying to like take our kids away. And so I had given this assignment for kids to go home and talk with their families about their ancestors for the play, and his daughter went home and asked about their ancestors, and he like freaked out and thought, so this whole kind of like thing got put together. And the next day he brought me this like dragonfly necklace that he had made, and he apologized, and we were able to kind of find this understanding, and those folks are still in my life. And I think why I tell that story, and where I want us to kind of move into conversation today, is to bring up that, like, I think that we all have experiences of not belonging. Like, I think that actually feeling like an imposter, feeling like we don't fit, maybe even that contributing to feeling like, oh, I'm not safe, might be part of what we have in common, that this is a deeply human experience. And, for me particularly, I think, for me as a queer person, as a trans person, but also, other people, like if we're black or brown or tall or, from a different place, that the stories of not belonging can be sticky. They can stick with us and turn into like kind of seeking out experiences that reinforce the story, like, oh, I don't belong here. Oh, I don't belong here again. And so for me, like feeling like a weird kid that didn't fit in, there was something about being in this town, being one of few visible queer people that was somehow comfortable, but then I had these experiences that like interrupted that. And so I think sometimes our stories can get in the way of seeing how we do have common ground or how we're not alone. And so that, that work, that was 14 years ago. And so this work of connecting people, helping people feel like they're not alone, that is deep in my heart. This is the work I've done in lots of different ways because of my experiences, and also I've like lost friends because they, felt so alone in the world that it can kill people, And I think we're in an epidemic of loneliness right now. And I think that like rural communities are special. I think that small communities can amplify the experiences of belonging and not belonging. So it can be easier to feel in a small community like, oh, I really don't belong here, or, and thinking about my experience in Cave Junction, that came to be the place that I felt most at home in the world. I would walk into the post office and everyone there knew me, and those kinds of experiences like gave me this sense of like, this is my place, these are my people. And now I carry that wherever I go. It's changed how I show up in the world. So I continued to live in Cave Junction. I left to go to school, and then I moved back and lived there for 5 years with my now wife. And working with stories and connecting people has been something I've continued to do in a bunch of ways over my career. As I said, at that time, I worked with elementary and middle and high school students, and we created these plays about what was going on in the community. And then when people would come to the plays, they would sort of see it on stage and then get into all these conversations like, well, did you represent it well? And there's so many stories about rural communities, and we were working it out on our own. Who are we? What is Cave Junction? Who really lives here? And then making art about community issues got me into wanting to kind of address the issues, and then I worked for several years as a community organizer in Southern Oregon, and I ran a project called the LGBTQ Listening Project, and we made spaces to hear from LGBTQ people about their experiences, and it turns out that like most people feel alone, and it was often the therapists who would come to me and be like, my 11 a.m. client and my 2 p.m. client both feel like they're the only one, and so like how do we set up an event so that people kind of like get to find each other? And then that kind of brought me to get interested in like, why are things the way that they are? And I got interested in public policy, and now, at Oregon's Kitchen Table, I get to work with decision makers who are really wanting to hear from people and making policies that affect all of us. And we create ways for people to have input on decisions that affect them, and we'll kind of get into that part in a little bit. But I guess I also wanted to say, I think that the work that we're doing today, and what I see we're called to do right now, is to use stories and like unearth our stories and use those to create spaces and experiences of belonging. Like our stories and our experiences, I believe, are like precious gifts and tools that we can use. And my friend, one of my teachers in community storytelling is Mark Yaconelli, who lives in Ashland, and he's been a mentor to me. And he wrote this book called Between the Listening and the Telling. And I wanted to share like a little bit about how he writes about storytelling. So he writes, "We are relational beings. We need others in order to become ourselves. We need relationship to access the deepest gifts of our humanity. We need relationships to live lives that are productive, loving, and meaningful. Sharing stories is how we make a home within ourselves and one another. Story is how we put together the broken pieces. Story is how we identify and heal the suffering within and among us. The practice of storytelling, particularly when sharing the real stories from our own living, tethers us to what matters most: our families, our friends, nature, the hearts we carry, the wondrous mystery of life itself. Every human being longs for a good question and a listening ear. Where did you like to hide as a child? When was a time you felt deeply betrayed? Where was the place that most felt like home? Who was the love that got away? How did you find yourself in this town? When was the last time that you felt truly alive?" My brother told me then I should put a joke in at that part, because it's like 9:30 in the morning and it's Saturday. But now we're not going to answer all those questions today, but I want to open it up and kind of let you know what we've got in mind and actually get us talking and listening to each other. So today we're going to be sharing stories and experiences related to the theme of belonging. And we've got this kind of cool opportunity right now because coincidentally, as Clue mentioned earlier, there's this big statewide effort happening to talk about belonging in higher education. So this is both this is your space, this is our space, this is for us and what happens today, and then also we have an opportunity to kind of shape and give input on that process. So as I mentioned earlier, I work at Oregon's Kitchen Table. And we work with decision makers to create ways for Oregonians to give input on decisions that affect them, which in theory seems like it should be something that always happens, that we have input on decisions that shape our lives, but usually it doesn't happen, is my experience, particularly in rural communities. So right now, OKT is partnering with the Higher Education Coordinating Commission to hear from Oregonians what helps students feel like they belong in college or training programs. So just to give you a sense of where we're going, I'm going to share a little bit more about that. We've got some prompts for you to share stories and listen to each other, and then we'll take a break, and then the second part we'll do a little more strategizing and thinking about what can create a sense of belonging both here at EOU and across Oregon. And we'll be doing some conversation at your table, some in the full group. Yeah. So I think, can we go to the next slide? This is a little more background about this project. And then we'll kind of get into the first question. So we know that after high school, most students are more likely to continue their education if they feel like they belong. And a sense of belonging is therefore this really important aspect of student success and well-being. And so the Higher Education Coordinating Commission actually set fostering a sense of belonging as one of their goals over the next 5 years. And so they're thinking, what could we do to help reach that goal? And so to do that, they wanted to hear from people what matters most to you when it comes to feeling a sense of belonging. So what is the Higher Education Coordinating Council? I had not heard of it before. The Higher Education Coordinating Commission is an agency that coordinates statewide policy and funding for college and training programs all over Oregon. And so when I say college and training programs, that's community colleges, universities, training programs, career and trade schools. And this spring, we're partnering with them to gather input from people, and so there's these conversations happening all over the state about like what helps people feel like they belong and what can decision makers as well as colleges do to support that. So Madison is here with me, who we've worked with in the summer camp, and Maddie lives in Pendleton. And today we're going to be both sharing stories at tables, and then you also have some paper and markers, and Maddie will just be taking notes on kind of the full group conversation, and it'll also all be anonymous. So, and if there's anything that you write down or draw that you want to hand me at the end, that'll all be, I'll share it with Mika so that it can be helpful to you here at EOU, and then also that'll be part of a report we put together for HEC. And so they will use that to take action on kind of what will help create a sense of belonging for students all over Oregon. So, oh yeah, this is the timeline. Summer, fall, so next winter will kind of be when that report comes out. So I know some folks maybe are watching online, and so in a minute we're gonna end the live stream, but before we do, I just wanted to let especially folks online know there is a survey, and then also I think we're gonna work on hosting a conversation for the online students, and so Mika will be in touch about that, and if folks here wanna join, that also I think is possible. So I think at this point we'll end the online, the live stream recording, and kind of just move towards being here in the room. Great, it happened. Okay, now it's just us. So, okay. So I just building on the community